Now we will learn about the sampling design. So population and sample, the distinction between population and sample is basic to statistics, and to make sense of any sample result, you must know what population the sample represents. The population in a statistical study is the entire group of individuals about which we want the information, whereas a sample is the part of the population from which we actually collect that information. We use information from a sample to draw a conclusion about the entire population. So if I already gave this example in chapter 1. So if this is population, so this is the sample we are taking a, although this here it's looking very big, but in real world we don't take sample this big generally, and collect data from that sample and make an inference about the population. So how could we sample badly? The design is design of a sample is biased if it systematically favors certain outcomes. So choosing individuals simply because they are easy to reach results in a convenience sample. So if we take an example of voluntary response sample, consists of people who choose themselves by responding to a general appeal. So what is the problem in here? Because voluntary response samples often show bias because people with strong opinion, especially negative opinions, may be more likely to respond. Now the simple random samples. Random sampling is the use of chance to select a sample is the central principle of statistical sampling. A simple random sample of size n consists of n individuals from the population chosen in such a way that every set of n individual has an equal chance to be the sample actually selected. So in practice, people use random number generators generated by computer or calculator to choose samples. If you do not have technology handy, you can use a table of random digits. So how to choose an SRS? So a table of random digits is a long string of the digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with these properties. Each entry in this table is equally likely to be any of the digits, 10 digits, that is 0 to 9. So it is equally likely to get 0 or equally likely to get 5. Similarly, other options. And the second is the entries are independent of one another. That is, knowledge of one part of the table gives no information about any other part. So how we choose an SRS using table B. Table B is in book. So step 1, label, give each member of the population a numeric label of the same length. And step 2 is table, read consecutive groups of digits of the appropriate length from the table B. And your sample contains the individual whose labels you find. So here's the example. Because we had only 28 numbers here, so we started from 0, 1. So because 2 digits will be needed, because we wanted the last one would be 28, so 0, 1. If it would be like 100 or 200, 300, it would be started from 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, like that. Similarly, other cases. So we got this history from table B6901, 64817, and these numbers randomly selected. Now how we will work? Because we are having all the 2 digits numbers, so we will divide this in the 2 digit numbers first. So what we did, 69, 05, then 16, then 48, then 17, like this. Then how we will select? From it, we don't have 69. In this, our labels, we don't have 69. What is the, first we have 5. Then we will get Beach Castle. Then 16. What we will get here? Radisson. Now 48 is not there. 17 is there. Then 87 is not there. We again got 17. So we will skip because we already had 17. So we will skip and went to 40. We don't have 40, 95, then 17, then we will skip it again, and similarly now at last we got 20. But nowadays we have different software programs that can select for us. The basic idea of sampling is straightforward. That is, we have to take a simple random sample from the population and use the sample results to gain information about the population. So probability sample is a sample chosen by chance, and we must know what samples are possible and what chance or probability each possible sample has. And sometimes there are statistical advantages to using more complex sampling methods. One common alternative to an SRS involves sampling important groups called strata within the population separately. These subsamples are combined to form one stratified random sample. To select a stratified random sample, first we classify the population into groups of similar individuals called strata, and then choose a separate SRS in each stratum and combine these SRS to form a full sample. So for its example, if we have to choose a sample from a university, but there are different departments in the university. So first, before going further with SRS, first what we will do, we will make different strata of different departments. Like if there is a business department, then there is a science department or arts department. So if we have these three departments, and these three are now three stratas, and we will now randomly select any number of students from there. If like from business we selected 2, from science we selected 2, 1 or 3, and similarly from arts 1 or 2. So now what we have selected totally is our total stratified random sample here. So one other type of sampling is multi-stage random samples. Another common method is random sampling is to sample in stages. So a multi-stage random sample uses probability sample in a series of stages. The final stage results in cluster of nearby households. Let's giving example, divide US into 2007 geographical areas called primary sampling units or PSUs. Select a stratified sample of PSUs and divide each PSU into a smaller area called blocks. Select a stratified sample of the blocks within each PSU selected in stage 1. And in stage 3, sort the housing units in each block into a cluster of 4 nearby units. Select SRS for these clusters and conduct interviews. So here is example of multi-stage sample, and we have to select a multi-stage sample of farms from the United States. In stage 1, we have to choose a random sample of 6 states. So we chose these 6 states in US, and after that, from that we chose in stage 2 random sample of 2 counties within each selected state. So we got these counties. These are randomly selected counties, and then from those counties we selected randomly selected 2 farms within each selected county. So our total sample size is now 24 because there were 6 states, we got 2 counties, and from that 2, so there are 24 farms. So this is now 3-stage sampling. We can see we started from 6 states, then 2 counties, and then 2 farms. And the difference between the stratified and multi-stage is that if it was stratified sampling, then we have to choose the counties from each state. We cannot choose only 6 states and then get the county. So this is the basic difference. So here's a summary of random samples. A simple random sample is the populations composed of individuals that are not grouped. The sample is taken from the entire population, whereas in stratified, individuals in the population are classified into strata according to some characteristics known prior to the sampling, and individuals are sampled from every stratum. Two-stage or multi-stage sampling is the individuals in the population are classified in groups according to some characteristics. First group are randomly selected, and then individuals are randomly selected, sampled from only that selected groups. We should be cautious about the sample surveys. So good sampling techniques include the art of reducing all sources of error and bias. So there are undercoverage occurs when some groups in the population are left out of the process of choosing the sample. And non-response occurs when an individual chosen for the sample cannot be contacted or refused to participate. And systematic pattern of incorrect responses in a sample survey leads to response bias. And the wording of questions is the most important influence on the answer given to the sample survey. Insist on knowing the exact question asked, the rate of non-response, and the date and method of survey before you trust a poll result. Now we will learn about ethics. So there is a basic data ethics that the most complex issues of data ethics arise when we collect the data from people. So the organization that carries out the study must have an institutional review board, that is known as IRB, that reviews all planned studies in advance in order to protect the subjects from possible harm. All individuals who are subject in a study must give their informed consent first before collecting the data. All individual data must be kept confidential, and only statistical summaries for groups of subjects may be made public. Now, institutional review boards, the organization that carries out the study must have an institutional review board that reviews all planned studies in advance in order to protect the subjects from possible harm. The purpose of IRB is to protect the rights and welfare of human subjects, including patients recruited to participate in research activities. So institutional review board reviews the plan of the study, review required changes, review the consent forms, and monitors progress at least once a year. All subjects must give their informed consent before data are collected. Subjects must be informed in advance about the nature of a study and any risk of harm it might bring. Subjects must then consent in writing. And who cannot give informed consent? Prison inmates, very young children, and people with mental disorders. So all individual data must be kept confidential. Only statistical summaries may be made public. Confidentiality is not same as anonymity. Anonymity prevents follow-ups to decrease non-response or inform subjects of results, and separate the identity of the subjects from the rest of the data immediately. And the example is citizens are required to give information to the government like tax returns, social security contributions. Some people feel that individuals should be able to forbid any other use of their data, even with all identification removed. So clinical trials are the studies that study the effectiveness of medical treatments on actual patients. These treatments can harm as well as heal. So points for a discussion is the randomized comparative experiments are the only way to see the true effect of new treatments. Most benefit of clinical trials go to future patients. We must balance future benefits against present risks. The interest of the subject must always prevail over the interest of science and society. In the 1930s, a public health service Tuskegee study recruited 399 poor black with syphilis and 201 without the disease in order to observe how syphilis progressed without treatment. The public health service prevented any treatment until work leaked out and forced an end to the study in the 1970s. So behavioral and social science experiments. Many behavioral experiments rely on hiding the true purpose of the study. Subjects would change their behavior if told in advance what investigators were looking for. The ethical principles of the American Psychological Association require consent unless a study merely observes behavior in a public space.